So what are the key factors in the HCCI combustion, low temperature combustion? So key factor is that ultimately, whatever you do, you should have control over auto ignition. That's essentially the key of the HCCI combustion. Now how can you see, there is no spark plug that you have control on. There is no fuel injection that you have control on. Fuel is injected much ahead and you don't know when it's going to react or when it is going to auto ignite. So there is no direct handle you have. But there are certain indirect handles you have. So that you controlling those indirect handle, you hope to control HCCI. And you hope to control HCCI effectively if you want to make a product in the market. Okay. So let us look at what are the things that we can possibly control for controlling the HCCI combustion. So first is that you can control the mixture preparation, that's in your hand. Okay. So in mixture preparation, basically you can control the injection timing, whether in cylinder or outside, depending on that. And what is the injection pressure? It is not so important for port fuel injection, but it is very important for in-cylinder injection. And then also you can control number of injections. Okay. So these are some of the things. See, in diesel engines, in one cycle you do multiple injections. Okay. Multiple injection means suppose you inject 5% of the fuel much ahead of the time before you do the main injection. So what will happen? That 5% fuel is put, it will burn first quickly, and when it burns first, it increases the temperature and pressure, okay, of the environment. And when you do the main injection, 95% fuel is introduced. At that time it is introduced in an environment which is hotter. Okay. So now the combustion will be very, very smooth. Its physical delay and chemical delay period will be much shorter, right? So you will not be, the combustion will not make noise. Okay. So what it essentially means is that if you do pre-injection of the fuel, you will be suppressing the combustion noise. In fact, you must have seen that these days, all these CRDI cars that have come into the market, you can't figure out whether it's a petrol car or a diesel car. Why? Because the noise signature is very, very small. How it is possible? It is possible because now you have a technology of fuel injection, which is called common rail direct injection technology, and you are introducing fuel in pre-injection. So when you introduce the fuel in the pre-injection, combustion knock is almost taken off from the diesel engines, and the engine noise becomes almost similar to gasoline engines. Okay. Similarly, and then if you look at talk about the post-injection, I have told you in very briefly during my lectures that there are many after treatment devices that are used in the engine, right? During the GDI also we discussed that these devices require a certain temperature in order to be effective, because they are working with catalyst, and catalyst require certain activation energy given by the temperature in order to become active and control the pollutants. So what is done is, if you do post injection, that means injection after the main injection is over, if you introduce a 2%, 5% fuel, 1 milligram fuel per cycle, what that will do? It will be non-producing fuel expenditure, but it will warm up the gases, it will heat up the gases, and that extra heat can then be used for earlier activation of catalysts. Okay. So pre-injection and post-injection is something that is to be decided for every load and speed combination. Okay. And what is the optimum timing which gives you lowest emissions? What is the optimum timing that gives you highest efficiency? So now essentially at every load and speed point you are doing multi-objective optimization, because there are multiple objectives. You have to meet certain emission norms, okay, and there are certain stops, certain load and speed conditions at which you have to take the measurements. So you have to make sure that this multi-objective optimization is done for reducing the emissions. So that's one objective. Second objective is to increase the efficiency. Third objective is that the engine should give you excellent low power torque. Otherwise young guys are not going to buy their vehicles. It will not give them kick, right, as a customer. They'll say its acceleration is poor, right? So there are multiple objectives. Keeping those multiple objectives in mind, you choose the fuel injection strategy for every load and speed point. And this is done on dyno or engine, okay, the whole vehicle or on the engine dyno, normally on the engine dyno. This process is called ECU calibration. And for one engine, it can take somewhere between 3 months to 6 months, depending on the proficiency of the team that is doing it. Once they have optimized each and every point, then what they do is they put it on they build a map. This is called engine mapping, ECU calibration, same thing. They make that map, and then on millions of ECU ramps, they just flash them. It's called memory flashing. And then in the assembly line, they are just fixed. So whatever calibration you have done in the lab for one engine, now same model engine, you can produce millions of them, and they will be behaving almost almost in the same way as the original engine. Okay, so that is how this is done. Similarly, you can do this for the HCCI engine. So that's why I have said you can vary the injection timing, you can vary the injection pressure, you can vary the number of injections. All these things are done as a part of the ECU calibration. Same thing you can do here for controlling the auto ignition. So here the main objective will be to control the auto ignition. You can change the physical properties of the mixture in the combustion chamber, because ultimately it is the mixture that is auto igniting. So you can control the physical properties, you can control the chemical properties, both, and you can control the mixture preparation. So in the physical properties, you can control the physical properties of the mixture by pressure and temperature. So if you preheat the mixture, for example, or if you put a lot of EGR, obviously the temperature and pressure will change, or the composition will change. Okay, you can do turbocharging, or you can change the compression ratio of the engine. So by doing all this, you are actually affecting the temperature and pressure of the in-cylinder charge. And this you have to do at the time of designing only. Okay, so that's how you affect the physical properties. Now auto ignition is a chemical process, right? It's controlled by chemical kinetics, right? So even chemical properties can be controlled by controlling the octane number or cetane number of the fuel. So you can blend two different fuels, change the octane number, etc., etc. You can put fuel additives. Okay, so there are many ways in which the chemical properties can be affected. Now if you look at the whole gamut of the parameters, none of them you are sure to give you the guaranteed effect. If one is changed and the other one is also changed, one will independently give you this effect, the other one will give you independently this effect. If you do both of them, you are not sure. So the synergistics between the factors is unknown. That you have to actually figure out at the time of engine designing or engine calibration, and then accordingly decide the ECU calibration. Okay. So HCCI, as I told you, either you can do port injection or you can do direct injection. So if you do port injection, this is very suitable for volatile fuels, obviously, because if you are doing the port injection, fuel has to evaporate and homogeneous charge should come in. If you inject diesel in the port, is it a good idea? I think it's a bad idea, because the diesel is anyway not going to evaporate. Here you have very low temperature. Even if you put preheated air, the temperature will be 100, 150, and diesel cannot evaporate fully up in temperatures less than 250 degrees. Okay. Direct injection is preferred for fuels which are heavy fuels and which do not evaporate. So this is one of the best technique actually for homogeneous mixture formation. But what you do if fuels are not volatile? Well, then you go for direct injection. Okay. So port fuel injection, this is appropriate for running the HCCI combustion engine on gasoline. This is very simple. Okay, you are doing the injectors are very cheap, Fuel pumps are very cheap, electrically driven fuel pumps, 3 bar pressure, you don't need pressurization, and it creates a well mixed mixture. You have lot of time available, okay, for preparing the mixture out in the port, and then the mixing continues when the mixture is going in the cylinder. So it prepares a reasonably good mixture, but the limitation is that at low loads it has low combustion efficiency, okay. And the drawbacks are that, you know, here whatever fuel does not evaporate, what happens? It will stick to the valves, first to the manifold walls and then to the valves, and then it will trickle down on the cylinder walls, and finally once it trickles down it can go to the oil sump. So it will create all the problems of washing, of the lubricating oil layer, etc., etc. So one of the film problems is that it creates wall film on the intake system. It is slow reacting to the engine transient. Suppose you change the load and speed, which you do all the time in a vehicle engine. Its reaction is very slow, okay. It obstructs the combustion control when using variable valve timing. Variable valve timing, you are opening and closing, that thing is changing with load and speed, okay. So what will happen? In that case, your opening and closing is changing and your quantity is changing. So maybe when you are injecting, not all of it is going. So this actually obstructs, and this creates a problem. So VVT engines, port fuel injection is not such a successful idea. Fuels with higher boiling points such as diesel result in poor evaporation, and non-evaporated fuel adheres to the intake system, intake manifold, intake valves, and onto the combustion chamber walls, and finally it will lead to HC, CO emissions and lube oil dilution. So it creates a lot of problems, okay. So port fuel injection has some merits, simple, cheap, control is easier, but it also has some demerits, and it certainly is not suitable for diesel like fuels, okay. Now let's look at the other system, which is the direct injection. Now before we discuss the direct injection again is early direct injection and late direct injection. Let's understand this curve. In cylinder gas density and temperature with late and early injections. So here you have the crank angle given. This is the TDC, okay, and this is the gas temperature. So obviously the gas temperature will increase, okay, up to TDC, and then it will reduce, okay. So here assume that, you know, no fuel is put, it's just the motoring. Gas density, how the gas density will vary? Gas density will also increase and it will reduce when so during the compression stroke it will increase, during the expansion stroke it will reduce. Now if you are doing early direct injection, that means you will see this is 180 degrees is that bottom dead center. So you will certainly not start when just at bottom dead center, you will start injecting somewhere here, okay. And then you see here is 200 to 300 degree centigrade. This is the zone in which the diesel evaporates, okay. And this 200 to 300 degrees, 200 degrees achieved 40 degree before top dead center. Before that the temperatures are low. So now we have not put any fuel so far. What we have understood, this is the temperature for the combustion chamber, this is the gas density for the combustion chamber, and this is the temperature window in which the diesel evaporates. Now what you do is you do early injection. So if you do early injection, suppose here, what will happen? You will have long mixing time because the evaporation is also not there. So it will have very long mixing time. The density of the air is also low. Density of the air is very important because in the engine, if the density is high and you inject the fuel, then what will happen? The density of the air will oppose the movement of the droplets. So the jet penetration will be lower. But if the density of the air is less, the droplets will essentially not have any opposition any resistance from the surrounding air, and they will penetrate deeper in the combustion chamber. And if they penetrate deeper, there is a possibility that they may strike the cylinder walls. And if they strike the cylinder walls, then they will wash away the lubricating oil. And if they wash away the lubricating oil, then piston rings will be rubbing directly against the cylinder walls, which will lead to increased wear of the engine, cylinder, as well as piston rings, right? So in this case, density will be low, so the spray will be penetrating deeper. Temperatures will be low, so there will be long liquid penetration and it will not evaporate. So these are the flip side of the early direct injection. In the late direct injection, short mixing time. If you are injecting late, suppose here you are injecting, okay, in this zone, you have very small time available for mixing and evaporation. So you will obviously have short mixing time, you will have high density, and therefore the penetration of the spray jet will be lower. You have high temperature also, so there will be short liquid penetration. So these are the characteristics of early direct injection and late direct injection. So this is the physics of what goes inside the engine combustion chamber. Well, one of the things that we did in our lab to deal with fuels which are heavy in nature and do not evaporate very quickly, very simple things, first principle based things we did. So air comes in, fuel comes in from here, so here you put a port fuel injector. Simple, same 3-bar, cheap fuel injection system. The injector is put here, so injector sprays the fuel. You have a tangentially air jet. So air blast come in, so what it will do is it will trap all the droplets and it will create some kind of a swirl, but it is moving, okay. And then there is another chamber which is covered with heater coils, electrical heater coils. So it will heat, now the walls are warm, it will warm the air and it will also evaporate the fuel. And what you get is a diesel vaporizer. And here you have put a thermocouple to see what is the temperature at which your fuel is, vapors are coming. This is controlled to a temperature controller, then it is connected to a relay and then to a transformer which is controlling the heater coil. So basically heater coils temperatures is also controlled. So basically, you know, this diagram shows the application of and control of vaporization unit. Main components are temperature controller, injection driver, relay and auto transformer. Coming back to early direct injection, with injection strategies, a homogeneous or highly premixed fuel air mixture is obtained by means of an injection event located early in the compression stroke, as I said, told you. Control of the start of injection is critical because there is no direct relation between the start of injection and start of ignition. Due to low in cylinder density in which the injection takes place, cylinder wall impingement is a major inconvenience that you face, major challenge that you face, both in terms of cylinder liner erosion and fuel interaction with the lubricating oil. So if this happens, these two problems are major issues. This leads to development of different versions of injection systems and strategies. You see here, if you are doing, normally this is your injector, okay. So this is conventional engine, and late direct injection engine is also, injector is also similar. So you are injecting very close to the top dead center, when density is very high. So the penetration does not go all the way to the walls, okay. Suppose if you use the same in the early direction stage, suppose your piston is here and the same injector is placed here, so then what will happen? It will hit the walls because now the gas density is low, okay. So when you are using the early direct injection, one of the first thing that you have to do is you have to redesign your injector nozzle orientation. So now this angle should be reduced to greatly. This is called narrow angle direct injector, okay. And if somebody is using this, somebody can say NADI combustion, narrow angle direct injection combustion, That's what people have done, just change the injector of the angle and you have another version of HCCI. Okay, close cousin, right? So you basically have to worry about this angle and also this angle. Okay, so this is a HCCI narrow spray angle injector. In late direct injection, the injection system has mixed characteristics of conventional combustion and HCCI combustion. Okay, I have already told you that it's very close to conventional combustion, except that the fuel characteristics are different. To obtain the optimal results, injection has to be completed within the auto ignition delay period, which brings in the necessity of high mixing rates and high injection rates. So the fuel injection has to be very fast, faster than conventional combustion. Control of start of combustion is easier than any other HCCI concept, in this case late direct injection. So this is preferred route actually for the HCCI. Two major advantages of this injection strategy: they are applicable in conventional diesel engines or in a natural technological evolution of current engines. So this technology is a natural progression of the technology evolution. The second thing is that the injection and combustion processes are not completely decoupled. Okay, so in port fuel injection, they are completely decoupled. Injection happens at one place, combustion happens at another place. If the injection is plus minus 5 degrees, it doesn't matter. Combustion will take place whatever time it has to take place. Here they are not completely decoupled, so that combustion phasing is controlled by injection timing. So injection timing has some, not full, but at least some control on the combustion. So this is one of the positive aspects, which is very important, because HCCI combustion, the biggest challenge is control of combustion. You have absolutely no direct control. In this case, at least you gain some control on the combustion. You see, if I am comparing the fuel system comparison, and here I am comparing port fuel injection, early direct injection and late direct injection, and the parameters that are given is time available fuel injection, typical fuel injection pressure, droplet size distribution, multiple injection capability, and relative cost. Okay, so these are the 5 parameters. So if you look at port fuel injection, how much time is available for fuel injection? Valve is closed, you can inject whenever you want. Okay, it will remain here, and when the valve opens, the mixture will come in. So you have entire 720 degree available to you. You inject whenever you want. Okay, typical injection pressure is only 5 bar, 3 to 5 bar. Obviously, the injection pressure is very, very small, so the droplet size diameter will be very, very large. So you have 50 to 300 micron Sauter mean diameter droplets. Okay. Multiple injection capability, you want to inject 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, it doesn't matter. Results are anyway going to be same, because the injection is not in the cylinder, it is outside. So it's not useful, it's not required. Okay. The relative cost is very, very small, because PFI injector cost you few hundred, maybe 1,000 rupees, and pump will also cost around the same. So it will be very, very cheap technology. If you look at early injection, so early injection, you can actually start from the end of the intake to almost the half of the compression stroke. So you have up to 220 degree available to you when you want to inject. Injection pressure need not be very high, because injection pressures build only after half of the compression stroke, second half of the compression stroke. So injection pressures can be very low, 45 to 100 bar is enough. Obviously the Sauter mean diameter will be smaller in this case. Multiple injection capabilities you can use. The cost is medium, because the fuel injection pressure has increased from this level. If you look at late direct injection, how much is the time available? Very, very small, because in that time the fuel has to be injected, it has to mix, it has to burn. 5 to 30 crank angle degree is the only time available to you. Injection pressure, it has to be very high, 650 to 2500 bar, because all the fuel need to be injected very quickly as possible. Sauter mean diameter will be 15 to 30 micron. multiple injection capability will be extremely useful. It is a must, you should have it. And obviously the relative cost will be also very high, because the fuel injection pressure pump and the fuel injectors and the control systems that are required are expensive. A lot of sensors will be required, a lot of actuators will be required. Okay, so this is more like CRDI system. All right. Need for ignition timing control in HCCI. See, if you control the HCCI timing, you can have low cyclic variations, you can have low NOx and PM emissions, you can have excellent economy. Okay, if you don't control them very effectively, you will certainly have high HC and CO emissions, you will have limited operating range, and you will have no means to initiate the ignition. Now that is why the ignition timing control is extremely useful. You must have it. Very effective ignition timing control. Ignition in this case is spontaneous and is governed by chemical kinetics. Intake conditions such as intake air temperature, air fuel ratio, fuel composition, residual gas fraction, that means gas left from the previous cycle, cylinder wall temperature and engine speed all affect the ignition process in the engine. Okay. So there is a need for closed loop control. So you cannot just take some action and then wait it will happen. It is always better to have closed loop control. Okay. So closed loop control is required because there is no direct control of the ignition. Combustion starts when the conditions are just right. Ignition process is very sensitive, and one parameter varies, it will change. Two parameter vary, you never know. So it's difficult to map with sufficient accuracy, and that's why the closed loop control is essential. Then there is instability in certain operating points, and these operating points cannot be maintained without active control. So if you are wanting a particular load and speed all the time, bringing these stable conditions is also difficult, because the thermal conditions also keep on changing at the same sometimes. So closed loop control is necessary for the stable engine operating condition in HCCI. Cyclic variations. So developing new methods for control ignition timing, controlling the ignition timing properly for wide operating range requires improved understanding of the influence of different variables on the HCCI combustion cyclic variations. So under certain operating conditions, HCCI engine exhibits large cyclic variations. So there are a lot of hunting, engine hunting under certain conditions. Cyclic variability ranges from stochastic to deterministic pattern. Okay. Stochastic means it just happens randomly, and deterministic means there will be some cause and effect relationship that can be established. One important design goal for the engine development is to minimize cyclic variability. Cyclic variability can produce undesirable engine vibrations and of course the HC emissions, HC and CO emissions. So cyclic variability should be minimized. Okay. So how do you do HCCI combustion control? So in the combustion control, you say combustion phasing control. Combustion phasing control is basically see in the engine combustion, there is a start of combustion, there is end of combustion. So when you say combustion control, what are you trying to control? The beginning or the end? So it's very confusing, right? So it is decided that you control the combustion phasing. Now what is this combustion phasing? Combustion phasing, there is a parameter called CA50, right? When we discuss that S-shaped curve of the combustion or mass burn fraction, we defined start of combustion, which was 10% of the mass burn, end of combustion was 90% of the mass burn, and CA10 minus CA90 was combustion duration. In this curve, we take CA50 as combustion phasing. So that's one point in the combustion cycle, that's what we are trying to map. So when we say combustion control, you are essentially trying to control CA50, because that gives a good representation of your combustion process. Okay. So it's in HCCI combustion, basically you are controlling the combustion phasing. So what are the methods for controlling the HCCI combustion? Two methods. One is that either you alter the mixture reactivity, the fuel air mixture reactivity can be changed, or you alter the time temperature history of the mixture. These two things. Okay. And these two things are going to control the HCCI combustion. How do you alter the mixture reactivity? There are many things that you can do. First is that you can do the blending of two or different fuels. You can inject two fuels, or you can blend, have premixed two blends. For example, if you require a low octane number fuel, what you can do, you can take a high octane number gasoline and low octane number diesel, mix them. Diesel has low octane number. Or you can blend gasoline with kerosene. Kerosene also has low octane number. Okay. Or if you want to increase the cetane number, you can put some additives. Or reduce the cetane number, you can put diesel, gasoline in the diesel. So two alcohols you can use. So you can use many fuels. You can blend them, and that will alter the reactivity. That will control the octane number, cetane number, and the mixture reactivity. That is one thing. Then the other thing is that you can have additives. So you can add additives, and additives are also going to alter the mixture reactivity. Then fuel preconditioning. Fuel preconditioning means you can increase the temperature and pressure, not pressure, the temperature of the mixture, fuel mixture, fuel. So if you increase the temperature, that becomes fuel preconditioning. You can actually control the residual exhaust gas amount, how much EGR you are putting in, or how much internal EGR you are leaving when you are closing the exhaust valve. If you close the exhaust valve early, there will be a lot of residual gas left. So during the intake, there will be, when the fresh fuel air mixture comes in, the mixture will be more reactive because now there are more radicals present. Okay. So this is how you can alter the mixture reactivity. But again, you require a lot of experiments need to be done, and you require a lot of experience to actually use both of these things. You can alter the time temperature history of the mixture. How do you do that? First is that you can modulate the intake air temperature. Suppose you are taking in the air at atmospheric temperature. If you put a heater and put it to 100 degree, then will it not increase the temperature inside the combustion chamber when during the compression? It will. So that is also going to control the time temperature history. Okay. If you do the in-cylinder injection timing control, the timing, see, in-cylinder injection whenever you are doing, first thing what happens, it will absorb heat from the cylinder contents, gases. Why? Because the fuel needs to evaporate, and for the evaporation you need to provide some latent heat of vaporization. Okay. So if you change the timing, that also affects the time temperature history. You can do water injection if you need to lower the temperature. You can use variable valve timing. Okay. You can use variable compression ratio. So these are some of the things by which you can alter the time temperature history. So you see here, these are the control parameters in combustion timing. As I said, you control CA50, this is combustion phasing, and net IMEP. So this is the pressure crank angle diagram. This is P theta diagram. Okay, P theta diagram. This is theta, this is pressure. So from here you figure out what is the maximum pressure and maximum dP by dCA. So this is when the premixed combustion takes place, the pressure change is very fast, and from this curve you can figure out what is dP by dCA. Change in pressure per crank angle degree, maximum change in pressure per crank angle degree. And then you put it in this equation. Heat release per crank angle degree is equal to gamma upon gamma minus 1 P dV by dCA. dV is change in volume of the cylinder per crank angle degree plus 1 by gamma minus 1 V dP by dCA. So once you have this and P is available, you put this in here, and then you can figure out the heat release diagram. Okay. So this is the heat release, this is the crank angle. So at every point you actually calculate this and you get this curve. So here, you will have CA10, here you will have CA90. This is the point at which CA50 is there. Okay, so this is what you want to control in the HCCI combustion. So you want to control the CA50, you want to control net IMEP, and then the constants on the HCCI combustion is that you watch out the peak pressure. If the peak pressure goes beyond the permissible limit, then what will happen? Structural failure of the engine. Either the piston will break, or the connecting rod will break, or the cylinder head bolts will snap. Then dP by d theta, change in pressure per Young angle degree, peak. Maximum change, maximum dP by d theta you should cap. It should not increase beyond a certain limit. Why? Because if the rate of pressure rise is very high, this will have a hammering effect on the engine power assembly, and that this will also lead to basically engine failure. If the net heat release also increases, then this will create problem in such as melting of the piston and other things can happen. So these three things are the constants that you keep in mind, and these are the red lines which you never cross. So when you do engine calibration, you try to control this, you try to control this, and these are your constants. You make sure that these alarms you do not cross with a fair margin. Okay. Combustion timing control. So basically, you know, there is an engine here, and there is a timing controller. This controls the timing actuators. Then there is a, sorry, this is the engine cylinder, timing sensor, timing controller, timing actuator. So these sensors are, you know, there could be piezoelectric pressure transducer put in the cylinder head. That's a sensor. Ion current sensor, it senses the radicals or the ions inside the combustion chamber. Torque sensor senses what is the power being produced. Engine speed sensor detects the engine fluctuations, engine speed fluctuations. The actuators, what are the actuators or handles you have that you can control? Dual fuel, you can have two injectors, you can control them individually. You can have variable valve actuations, intake and exhaust valve opening if you are using VVT. You can vary the compression ratio if it is a variable compression ratio engine. You can change the thermal management, intake air temperature, intake air pressure. You can control the fuel injectors. So these are the sensors. They collect some data. You do the processing and then control the actuators. I'll come back here. So these are the timing sensors. They detect the signal from the HCCI. Timing, all the data from the timing sensors comes to the timing controller. Timing controller is going to determine, you know, what changes need to be made, give the signal to timing actuators, and it will do the fuel injection accordingly, and this becomes a closed loop control. Okay. Similarly, you know, thermal management, you know, you are looking at basically this is the engine, this is the exhaust manifold, this is the intake manifold, this is another intake manifold. Okay. So in the thermal management, basically the exhaust is going out, passing through a turbocharger and going through preheater to the exhaust. Here, you know, the intake air is coming in, passing through carburetor or fuel system, then coming to the compressor, then throttle, control the quantity of the air, coming to the supercharger and going through the intercooler, so cold air comes in, and preheater, hot air comes in. Both you can control, quantity you can control. So instead of one intake manifold, you have two of them, one for the hot air, one for cold air, and that actually helps you thermal management. I'm not saying that this is the only strategy, but this is one of the strategies used. So this is still an open problem. You know, people are trying different things to gain more control. So one group has tried this and found it to be reasonably successful. So now coming to the end, you know, I would like to summarize what we have learned in the HCCI combustion. One is the HCCI combustion can be applied to both 2-stroke and 4-stroke engines. Fuel flexibility, there is complete fuel flexibility. You can use wide variety of the fuels. You can use liquid fuels, you can use gaseous fuels, but high octane number fuels are preferred. Okay. Intake air temperature strongly affects the ignition timings. Port injection and direct injection can be used for homogeneous charge preparation. HCCI responds well to supercharging and turbocharging, and in fact increases the envelope. Operating window is small and you can increase it by doing the mode switching. No direct control on start of injection and rate of combustion as of now. Flame propagation is absent in the cylinder. It's a volume combustion, volumetric combustion. Combustion duration is very small compared to conventional combustion engines. Conventional combustion engine 30 to 90 crank angle. Here it is 8 to 15 crank angle degree. EGR decreases the energy release rate and advances the ignition. Fuel air mixing affects the emissions, but it does not affect the microscopic qualities such as IMEP. NOx emissions can be significantly reduced at light loads. Carbon monoxide and HC emissions are comparatively large, actually very large, almost as high as spark ignition engines. But they decrease when the load is increased, because when you increase the load, it becomes high temperature combustion, relatively higher temperature combustion, and then these will be destroyed. Closed loop control is essential for the HCCI combustion technology for automotive applications.